All right. Well, good afternoon, PMI Western Idaho chapter team members. Hey, I want to welcome you to our October session. We're going to be hearing from our speaker about future-proof your PM career with AI and machine learning skills. It's my pleasure to introduce Michael Roberts, who will be our speaker today. Michael is the VP Sales and Marketing for SPK and Associates. A little bit more about Michael. He's an IT industry professional with more than 25 years of experience in bringing software to market. His industry certifications and accreditations include those from IC Agile, Cisco, CompTIA Scaled Agile Framework. With his experience as a technology executive, he's guided many companies to successful IT and software projects. So, well, with that, I wanted to remind you all as well that on the right-hand menu within your hop-in screen is a session Q&A and a session chat. We will be using under the session tab feedback, and Michael's going to have a few questions for us throughout as people come on board.
Hey, Brian, this is Cheryl. I'm just going to jump in really fast. Your audio is breaking up just a little bit. I'm not sure if everyone else is experiencing that, but just to repeat, so we're going to use Q&A for you to submit a question to Michael if you have any, and we're going to use chat this time for responding to any questions that Michael may have for the group. Hopefully that's coming through clearly. Sorry, Brian, not sure what's going on today. One of those days.
Okay, and I'm not hearing Michael yet either.
No, I'm here, guys. Sorry, I was just waiting till you were good. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, it's all yours.
Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Thanks, Cheryl. I love this talk, and this is actually one that I've been working on for quite some time. In the process of preparing this for the chapter today, I actually went back and looked at when I made this talk originally. I think I actually first gave this talk in 2019. So that gives you any context that we've been talking about artificial intelligence and machine learning like at this level for quite a while. Maybe the rest of the world is starting to catch up, but these are not new concepts for sure. But I want to talk through ways that you can kind of future-proof your career and set yourself up for success. Brian gave a little bit of background, like certifications and the fact that I'm old. When I put 25 years of experience in there, it just makes me feel old. There is some gray hair in that beard. And sorry, I'm not on camera for whatever reason. My camera is not cooperating with me at the moment, but I apologize for that. But this is kind of my background and technical skill set. But I do like to connect with everybody and give them a little bit of background of like actually who I am and whatnot, as opposed to just the book definition. Maybe give you a little peek on why I think the way I think. So I'm originally from the Philadelphia area. I was born in Westchester, Pennsylvania, and grew up most of my life there until I decided to go to college in North Carolina and play baseball, where I majored in business administration. I'm not a technical person, but my former catcher in college became a technology person, and we connected a couple years afterwards. I ended up getting him a job at a company, and we learned a lot of tech stuff together over the years. Living in North Carolina now, I realize that I do absolutely not like snow and ice. This is in Madison, Wisconsin, like the day after the polar vortex. I want to say the high was like 4 degrees. I was not a happy camper. Growing up in Pennsylvania, I had to shovel a lot of snow. That gives me a lot of mental scars. So I try to stay away from cold weather. I get a lot of my technical experience from a company in Fayetteville, North Carolina that I was at for 19 years called Advanced Internet Technologies, AIT. And then through the years, I've learned a lot more, the way that the rest of enterprises are applying things. But I always harken back to the way that we used to do things at AIT and go, we kind of knew what we were doing. And although we didn't know what we were doing, we didn't realize how the rest of the world did things. But over the last, I'll say 10 years, I've had to experience or got to experience a lot of how other enterprises are working with either software or infrastructure or whatever. And a lot of my experience comes from those 19 years at AIT. I have a 10-year-old daughter who loves to play ice hockey. She's actually part of the Carolina Junior Hurricanes. She has games again this weekend. This picture is actually from a tournament that they won in New Jersey earlier in this year. I'm the one with the really long beard on the left, and she's the one kind of in front of me with her hand up. That's her. She's a tough little cookie and somebody that I absolutely cannot fight now. She is old enough to whip my butt, so I don't mess with her. From a sports perspective, I am a Phillies and a Sixers fan. Insert your Philly jokes here. That's okay. Let's go beat the Braves tonight. I'll be a happy man. I'm also a Bucks fan, a Carolina Hurricanes fan. I have to be because we're attached to the organization, and a Chelsea supporter. So one of the things that I learned in the course of giving these types of presentations during the pandemic is a lot of the times people are coming to get information, but they want to be entertained. And as someone who has sat through a lot of presentations over the years, I like to be entertained. So hopefully I can throw in some memes here and give you guys a good chuckle, and hopefully you'll enjoy what I have to say here beyond the content, maybe able to give you a little chuckle. So at a glance, here's kind of what we're going to talk about in this session. I'm going to give you some book definitions, but maybe a little bit more context on AI and machine learning and maybe the differences between the two. And then we'll talk about some of the AI and machine learning tools that exist. And then I really want to go into some real world AI and machine learning projects and things that you guys may already have dealt with as it exists today. And then we'll talk about your role as a project manager, or really any role in your organization, and how to future-proof it with those AI and machine learning skills. So before I dive into some of the content, I'd like to ask two questions, and you can put answers in the chat. I would love to understand why you're here today for a couple reasons. One, it gives me some context on the things that you are looking for or maybe aren't looking for. And then also secondarily, this actually helps me understand how I can evolve this talk and add additional context to it, maybe that I wasn't thinking about. So if you have any feedback, comments, why you're here, feel free to throw that in the chat.
And Michael, I'm assuming you can see the responses coming in.
I am. I've just flipped to it just to kind of take a look at.
Okay, excellent.
How AI will impact project management. I'm a BI product manager. Okay, yeah, Mitch, that's a really good one. You're gonna kind of know about AI if you're doing BI. I'm here to learn about AI and how I can use it in my job. Okay, a lot about AI, but nothing specific to project management. Okay. Dale, that's a good one. Hopefully we'll get some answers there. I see Granville Casey, Errol Casey's in the house. Errol and I used to work together at AIT. Errol must have seen my LinkedIn post. Here to learn. Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. That really does help me get some context and understanding of why you're here. The next thing I want to talk about or get from you is, has anybody been involved in an actual AI project? And that would be really cool to see, because I want to understand what everybody, is used to, and do you have any context around those things? And before anybody says absolutely not, nobody could have ever done, I have had at least one crowd where more than 10% of the people have actually worked on AI or machine learning projects. So it actually absolutely can happen. Yeah, we do say we have at least one. We have at least one. That's great. Cool. Well, let's dive into a little bit of this. I'd like to first give some context about AI. Now, prior to things like ChatGPT, everybody thought, oh, AI is Skynet. AI is a human brain and a robot body. AI is going to take over the world. Well, when statements like that come out, I kind of go, well, you really don't understand what it is, because at the end of the day, it's maybe not as we may get to those places. I'm hoping that Skynet isn't going to be a real thing, but it's not there yet, and we're not there yet. But I can see where it could go to get there, and I think that's one of the things that we want to get to, and I'll explain together a little bit. So before we get to modern day AI, let's talk about some context and how technologies evolve. So in the early 1900s, and I was not here for this. This is all by me reading and talking to people. But when factories were built, that factory would have a power plant built right next to it to power the factory. Right now, how dumb does that sound today when we literally have a public utility in every town in America? You literally can just drive down to their office or go to their website and create an account, and you'll get power to your building, whether that's a home or an office or a manufacturing plant. So that's the evolution of those days to having to build your own to now it's a utility, right? And something very similar. And Errol, this is not our data center at AIT. This is actually just a stock picture off the internet, but this used to be a thing, right? People used to stick, and some people do still stick computers in a server closet and hope for the best. And hopefully there's enough power and cooling and whatnot to manage the environment. And now, again, not something that's traditionally done. Most people are using cloud services that are handled by some other provider, and Amazon and AWS, a Microsoft, that type of thing. So what about data? I will tell you right now, the way that we handled data over the last, I'll say 20 years is really going to be different in the next 5 years. What used to be maybe manual data entry, or, oh, we just have a lot of data, but we don't have anybody to look through it or anything to do with it. Those days are going to go bye-bye. People are going to be looking for ways to process data. And so data is going to be extremely important. And the concept of data entry is probably going to go away. It's important to have the data, but just manually importing or manually putting in data is not going to be a thing anymore. There's going to be scanners and systems and whatnot that capture all the things that businesses need to capture, and they're going to start actually using and processing that data too. So that's kind of what lays the context for AI. And there's a lot of people that don't understand what's the definition. So I want to back up a little bit and give some basics. So I heard this the other day, and I'm stealing it. I think it's a really great statement. People say that we keep moving the goalposts on what AI means. So everybody knows that this is a Google Assistant, or most people probably do. And if you don't know that this is a Google Assistant, you may even have an Amazon Alexa in your house. Now, if I would have told you 20 years ago that you could order AA batteries by yelling at an electronic device in your kitchen, and 2 days later it would show up at your front door, you'd think I'm crazy. But at the end of the day, that's just natural language processing. It's something that we've been doing for years and years and years. And so that's come to the home. Now, that's not, is that AI? I would classify that as AI, but people don't look at that as AI. It's doing really complex things. And one of the things that I loved about this was actually happened right before the pandemic, and I was really excited for it. With Google Assistant, you could have it call a restaurant and reserve a table without talking to any. You didn't have to talk to anybody. It would talk to the person at the restaurant for you. And then the pandemic happened, and people weren't reserving tables. But I thought that was a really cool, component of AI. Now, again, just natural language processing at the end of the day. It's not rocket science. It's technology we understand. But we just lump artificial intelligence as something that we don't understand. It's just this really weird phenomenon. And that's not really the case. If you look at what AI actually is, it's listed in the Sinofin framework as complicated, but not complex. So I give to you the if statement. And that's really, at the end of the day, what AI is. And AI really looks at, it breaks down into three things. It can do one of these three things. Either it's going to process arduous and time-consuming tasks, things that take a long time, or it's going to be able to analyze a large data set and provide actionable insights so that you can make a good decision. And then the other thing it can do is it can help reduce wait times or hold times. Think of your chat bots on a website where a human doesn't have the time to get there. The company doesn't have enough resources to be able to expend that, but they can put some type of AI solution in place to help answer questions and direct people to the right places. Again, it's not a perfect solution, but these are the things that AI is used for from a business perspective. Those are the main three things. And then I love to talk about like some real facts to maybe give you some upfront information that you didn't know. So AI is more than 40 years old. This is not in the last 12 months thing. So please don't tell me ChatGPT is the only AI tool out there, or that's the reason why AI exists. That's not the case. And there's only about 10,000 people in the world that are doing serious AI work. And when I say serious, I'm going to show you some examples of those types of platforms. And then as of this year, from a study, only 35% of companies have actually deployed AI. So think about all the tools that are coming out now. That only represents 35% of all companies. We got a long way to go before everybody's using AI. But there's only 4% of companies that are performing substantive state-of-the-art AI. The rest of it's just text processing, natural language processing. It's not rocket science. It's stuff that's been around for quite a while. And then as of 2019, now this is pre-pandemic, so I'm sure this number has changed, but I don't have an updated number from MIT yet. 54% of companies either have no plans to deploy AI or have not begun implementing what they planned, which really kind of tells you a lot in terms of opportunity, right? It means there's a lot of companies that haven't even figured out what they're going to do yet. And this is, in America, we judge a lot of things around these types of facts. You know, where are people putting their retirement and their second mortgage to start a business? They're starting it in AI 14 times over the past 20 years. And then as of this year, 33% of consumers think that they are using AI platforms when in reality, 77% of them are. So really think about the AI, usage. People are thinking this is new when in reality, a lot of them have been using it for quite a long time. So of all these facts and all this kind of context, what does this mean for you? I think if I were in college at the moment and I were trying to figure out what I was going to do, I would see this as a huge opportunity area. And not just opportunity area, I could be a leader in this space. And I don't mean leader as in maybe you're that 4%, maybe you don't have the PhD to go along with it. But can you be a leader from a perspective of being able to provide how to contextually implement AI in your organization to perform better operations or better selling or better marketing? Absolutely. And there's a big growth area in those places. And obviously with that gives you the ability to grow and change and do what you want. So this is kind of the area that I would say I would be most interested in if I were in a young portion of my career. This is probably about as technical as I'm going to go in this talk. We are going to talk AI, obviously, but I want to give you some areas that if you want to learn more, like the how and all those things, I'll give you some areas you can research and do that on your own. I'll also give you some books at the end that may be good places to start. There's three types of AI. There's narrow, general, and then super AI. So AGI, that one in the middle, that's what most people think of, but we're not quite there yet. There's no Rosie the robot from the Jetsons for all of you folks that may remember that cartoon. This is a depiction of basically what we're trying to get to and why AI is important. And I tell people this is like the 10,000 foot view. This is how AI has to be learning, and it has to be creative, and it has to adapt. So at the end of the day, we do this in our everyday lives. What happened and why did it happen? And that's, the stuff you see on the news. It's the plane had a failure because it wasn't maintained, right? And you can all see that in retrospect with data points and pieces of information and interviews and analysis and whatnot. You can see those things. But really, how do I get to what will happen, right? How can I be predictive in what I'm doing? And then this is, to me, the epicenter of all AI. This is really what most companies want to get to, is how can I make it happen? What levers do I have to pull for the outcome for my business to be more sales? Now, there's probably a billion different metrics, but if I can understand all of those metrics and I can apply them in the right ways with the right conditions, then I can start to make things happen. So this is why having all that data and being able to process it from an AI perspective is really important. So it's not just the consumer portions, your Amazon Alexas and your Google assistants. It's now, think of how can I really take all this data and get to the point where I'm being prescriptive. I can make the environment happen the way that I want. So here's kind of a summary of what we're talking about from an AI perspective. So think about this when we talk about AI for the rest of this talk. It's got to exhibit intelligence. It has to show abstract thinking. It has to show some creativity, strategy, context. And it's a lot broader than what we're going to talk about with machine learning, and you'll see that in a second. So this is another phrase that comes up when you talk about artificial intelligence. People talk about machine learning. Some people use them interchangeably, but they are absolutely not interchangeable. They are very, very different. So machine learning is a subfield of AI, and its goal is to enable computers to learn on their own. Machine learning algorithm enables it to have essentially pattern matching in the observed data, builds a model, and that model can then explain that to the world and potentially predict things without having to explicitly pre-program the rules of that model. So in this case, the meme here, it's just trying to learn. It's giving an answer, but it's just trying to learn. And really, if you look at this, depict this graphically, I'm going to build a machine learning algorithm. I'm going to shove a data set to it, and then it's going to learn a thing, whatever that thing happens to be. Now, this is a real world app that was created in 2017, and you would take a picture of something and it could tell you whether it was a hot dog or not, which I thought was really stupid, but really cool. Like, it's the smallest of things, but imagine feeding a machine learning app a billion pictures and then telling it which ones were hot dogs and which ones were not. It would learn, it would understand this is a hot dog versus this is not. It maybe wouldn't know if it's an all beef hot dog or a turkey dog or a sausage dog or whatever, but it would know if it's a hot dog or not, right? It would understand those basic things based upon angles and images and size and shape and all those things. So it can understand a certain thing. But the problem is, what happens when you feed it a data set that isn't it? What happens if I'm not looking for a hot dog or not? What happens if I give it days of the week? It's not going to understand what to do. It's not built like that. It's not built for that. So this is where kind of machine learning fails a little bit. And machine learning kind of showcases its brilliance when it's applied to a very specific, well-constructed data set that's tailor-made for that algorithm. But in the real challenge arises when you're attempting to use machine learning on data that doesn't align with its intended scope. In those cases, the algorithms struggle, often leading to an erroneous conclusion or unreliable prediction. The effectiveness of machine learning heavily depends on the quality, relevance, and appropriateness of the data it's trained on. Without a suitable match between the data and the machine learning tool, the results can be far from impressive and quite, in fact, disappointing. And in this case, that's kind of what that meme shows. All right, so why would you use machine learning? That doesn't make any sense. It sounds really stupid. It's not abstract. It is impressive at one thing, but not really all the things. Why would you even want to use that? Well, how do you get to build an AI model? Well, maybe you just build some machine learning models and string them together and create a deep learning or neural network. And so this is basically how AI starts, is by creating these models, and it's modeled after how the brains function. All these set of inputs are then propagated through that network and can be tweaked and trained based upon the feedback that you provide it. Is that a picture of an ice cream cone or a dog or an ocean? Well, if I know that it's not one of those things, then I pass that test, right? So then I write the next test and the next test. And that's what those neural networks do. And they're nothing more at a high level than an if-else condition. For those of you who have done any Boolean programming and use an if-else condition before. So I like to talk about now the job portion of AI, and I always hear that people are going to lose their jobs. So I want to talk about this a little bit, because I think you can see two sides of the story here. So this video is actually from Vice News in March of 2020, and they did this story on a Stanford AI deep learning algorithm that looked at 10,000 cases of pneumonia and non-pneumonia. So it gave it a test case, a test set. And then it could detect with an accuracy of 81%, which technically is 2% better than radiologists over that same time span, whether someone has a pneumonia or not, just from those scans. And so in this article, it talks, or in this news story, it talks about Jeffrey Hinton, the godfather of deep learning, and he gives a quote in here that says we should stop training radiologists now, because in 5 years, deep learning can do a better job. And of course, the human element, they have a doctor there from Mass General that basically says, yep, that's a concern, but we do more than just that, right? We are humans as well, and that'll allow us, the AI will allow us to be more accurate in what we do, but there's so much more to our job than just reading an X-ray. So hold on to that thought, because I want to stab into that towards the end, but I want to jump into tools real quick. Most times I don't like talking about tools, but this is the elephant in the room, and we kind of have to talk about ChatGPT, right? And I want to create some context around why it exploded. I think the first thing is it's very intuitive. It's very minimal UI. There's a bunch more plugins that have come out in the last 12 months or so that can really, really give you what you need, and you don't have to be a super expert at it. But it's more or less just natural language processing with prompting capabilities for a two-way conversation. It does support a lot of languages now, like 50, I think is what it is. But I also think it has some limitations too, because a lot of the information was not as complete until recently, where they said that ChatGPT is going to scour the internet for answers. It was limited to things that it had learned up to September 2021. So anything was kind of still limited in terms of knowledge. And then it does lack creativity and attention to detail that humans, quite frankly, have. I've used ChatGPT a ton in the last year. I've used it from everything from marketing to selling to technical fixes and coding. You name it, I've used it. And do I take and copy and paste and use its example or a piece of information every time? Absolutely not, because it doesn't have the same creativity and attention to detail. So it can also be forced to accept wrong answers. And that's a whole ethical side of ChatGPT. When it's scouring the internet, we all know that not everything on the internet is accurate, right? So that's another kind of concern with regards to ChatGPT. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on these tools on the screen here, but I wanted to at least kind of mention that there are a bunch in different areas. And the ones that are in that project management and time management there on the left, I've used all of them. And I would say at a high level, they are not what I would consider project management tools. They're more time management or personal management tools. I don't think that any of these really classify as an enterprise project or program management tool, but I do know a lot of tools out there that are enterprise class and are building in AI type components, and that is a huge benefit, huge benefit. A couple tools that your developers and infrastructure people may want to know about. I think TensorFlow is probably the best AI machine learning type tool out there. This will help you build platforms or build tools around processing all that data and getting to an output where you can actually say your tool or your system has AI in it. Google has their own machine learning. Amazon does as well. Accord.net for all you Microsoft fans. Some open source ones called Shogun and Apache. And then Microsoft obviously is extremely big in the AI area. And then machine learning, Big ML is probably one of the more popular machine learning tools that's out there. I would like to add in some of these tools are AI ops tools, or they were built for IT operations, but they now have a AI component to it. And this is really big for enterprise technology, IT ops folks, as Errol can probably attest to. Managing things manually back in the day, it meant that administrators and engineers would have to create their own scripts to parse data and do things. But now that's kind of built into the tools that they're using to do their job anyway. So that's a great place to do analysis, because you have a lot of log data, sensor data that you can then start to do predictive things and preventative maintenance on. Okay, so it's quiz time, and here's what I'm going to ask: that folks put answers to the quiz questions that I'm going to show, put them in the chat area, and we'll see how well you guys do in the real world use cases quiz that we have. So if you didn't know, Uber and Lyft technically are either an AI or machine learning tool. It looks at ride price and wait time and drive time to come up with a calculation of how much you're gonna pay to go from one place to another on their service. So put in the chat, do you think it's artificial intelligence or machine learning? We'll give everybody just a minute. It is machine learning, because all those pieces of data are already preset. It already knows what those things are, or can gather those things at the real time. It doesn't care if somebody's wearing a blue shirt or has a suitcase. That's not a component. They don't really care about that. Autopilot. So I put a little asterisk next to 1914 because it says it dates back to 1914, but that little asterisk means I don't necessarily believe that, or I find that to be very hard to believe. But I have heard this stat over the years, and it is true. The average flight involves a whopping 7 minutes of human steering. So do we think that autopilot is artificial intelligence or machine learning? It is artificial intelligence, AI. All right, spam filters. Errol knows all about these. If you just look for the word Viagra, it's not going to work. That email is going to get through. So these engines are now learning and adapting, and they're scoring, looking at the message and the message metadata. So is this AI or machine learning? It is AI, because it is looking at multiple things now, not just single points of data. This is a cool thing that I started using several years ago. I was still getting paper checks every once in a while for like travel reimbursements and that type of stuff. And I was like, oh, I just never have time to go to the bank. I'm going to use I can take a picture of the check and deposit it, that mobile deposit feature. There was a company called MyTech that actually developed this with handwriting and image to text, and they've adapted it over the years and licensed it to a lot of different banks and whatnot in their mobile apps. So do we think this is AI or machine learning? AI or machine learning? It's actually both. Gotcha. All right, one more, or actually three more. This was a company I worked with that had an HR data project, and they saved all this performance data about the employee in an Amazon S3 bucket. If you're not familiar with Amazon S3, it's like a Google Drive. It's just a place to store files. And they had a policy that basically looked at, you can review your own files and your supervisor can review your files, but they had a log of any time anybody that was not themselves or their supervisor was looking at another file. And the project was to basically look at that log and to determine if there was any anomalies, any abnormal access, and then make sure there was alert in their alerting system to say, hey, somebody accessed something they shouldn't have. So do we think that is artificial intelligence or machine learning? That one's machine learning because it's looking for a specific format and that specific log file, just a simple algorithm. Could be a lot of data, but it's a simple algorithm. Another top financial services company I worked with, they were reviewing all of the trades and the changes in price for crypto. And ultimately, I mean, this is what a lot of these financial companies do is they're looking to gain some insights and make predictions and then tell their customers about those predictions so that both the customer and this financial company can make more money. And they were trying to look through, I mean, a lot of content here. We're talking about millions of records per day between trades and price changes and all that, and all these different crypto areas. So do we think this is artificial intelligence or machine learning? Or I guess I did trick you, so they could be both. Actually both. And the reason it's both is that it also had to look at market conditions based upon, political changes, who went to war, who fired on who, what countries are going bankrupt, that type of thing. Okay, last one. Another financial company that I worked with was pulling down the Bloomberg financial data every day, and very large data set, 25 million rows of data per day. And based upon all those historicals, they were trying to make a prediction. They were using Snowflake for this, which was the tool that they were doing their analysis, the storing of the data and doing the analysis in. But they made an AI model. And the real cool part about this is they actually had a team that was responsible for learning a lot of AI concepts. And they probably wouldn't have had the ability to make this team if it wasn't for the fact that these folks willingly went and understood and learned a lot of these AI and machine learning concepts. So do we think that this type of project is artificial intelligence or machine learning? Or both? It's both. It's both. Okay. So I want to talk about the future. And this is one of the things that people ask me about when they talk about AI is it going to replace my job? So let's talk about that angle a little bit. Like I showed that Vice story earlier. If you're not familiar with this gentleman, Kai-Fu Lee, he is a Chinese businessman who has worked for pretty much every major tech company out there. He did his PhD thesis at Carnegie Mellon, and then later worked for Apple, SGI, Microsoft, Google. He sits on the board of a lot of major companies. Really, really smart guy. And he made this controversial. He was kind of doing his book tour about this AI superpowers, and he gave this statement that said it's going to replace, or eliminate 40% of jobs in the next 15 years. Now, in the next 15 years, I'm hoping that I'm retired. But my daughter is going to be very much in the job market, and I am hoping that she's not one of those 40%. And how can we, prevent that or understand that more? And I think this is the sensationalized part that is not published. There are some jobs that are replaceable. Human wisdom will always overcome technology revolutions. If you're not familiar with the steam engine and the sewing machine and electricity, those technologies have replaced and displaced jobs. The sewing machine, obviously, there were seamstresses that literally would sew cloth together all day long. But with the sewing machine, you could do that in a tenth of the time, and so you didn't need as many people doing that, right? But at the end of the day, the point that he made at the end of this, the part that wasn't sensationalized, was humans have empathy. Humans have sympathy. Those are things that AI is not going to replace. And if you want to translate that to how project managers operate, I think project managers have some of the hardest jobs in the world, because you have to deal with all these different types of personalities. And in a Forbes 2019 story about AI and PM trends, they actually came across, they said there's going to be 4 trends. The first one was directly about artificial intelligence and data. So that's kind of why we're here today. The second one I thought was pretty interesting. you have to have a wide range of skills related to both AI and EI, emotional intelligence, which is 100% true. Good project managers understand that and have that, and are able to operate their organization in such a way that doesn't make people mad, but that accomplishes things, right? There's a big difference between a taskmaster and a good project manager that can help get stuff done. The other things that were on that 2019 report, just to note, agile methodologies and hybrid, being able to do both waterfall and agile. And then project management teams are going to become more diverse. So you got to make sure that you're understanding of how to handle cultural differences and all the different scenarios that would go along with that. And then another statement recently from Capterra talked about investing in AI capabilities, particularly those focused on task automation and predictive analytics, which is kind of what I was talking about before. How can I predict it? And then exploring adopting hybrid project management models. So, Capterra is even telling you, hey, here's the places to look. There's another one. The project group actually gave 9 trends, and their number 1 was AI and project management is on the rise. So get prepared and be used to that. I would kind of summarize all what we've talked about here. I don't think project managers are in danger of having their job replaced by AI. I think there are some that are going to have that. But I would also say, look at the number of companies that haven't implemented anything, and then only 35% have. So there's a lot of opportunity for growth in this area. In the next 10 years, it's not going to look like it did 10 years ago. So just keep in mind, it's going to go really fast. And if you embrace and hop on this trend, you'll really ride that wave. In terms of preparing, I think there's a couple things that you could do. And I got some recommendations for reading right after this too. But first is find out what projects your company has that are AI and machine learning, and try to get on those. Invest in training and reading and learning about AI and machine learning. Another one that I gave a personal recommendation to a project manager about 6 months ago. I said, hey, find out what you do, find out what your team does, and find out what the organization does as a whole that you're not using or leveraging data and AI and machine learning, and make recommendations on that. That is a really high priority item right now. Organizations are looking for that stuff. How can we get better, smarter, quicker, faster? And that's a way to do it, making those recommendations. And if you have any type of projects related, we'll talk about what SBK does here in a bit, but we do have a lot of experience with large data sets, and that actually can help from an AI perspective. Here's 3 books. Feel free to take a quick screenshot of this if you like. The 2 on the left, the one in the middle and one on the left, are probably more easy reading. The one on the right is absolutely VCR instructions, but if that's what you like, then I highly recommend it, because TensorFlow is a really cool tool, and you can learn a lot with it. And to me, it opens up the world of what's possible. Once you understand what's possible, then maybe some of those AI and machine learning recommendations get a little bit easier. I work at SBK & Associates. We're headquartered in Scotts Valley. We've been in business over 20 years. It is a certified woman-owned organization. I'm really proud to work with this company. I've been here for 2 years, and I don't know that I'll be going anywhere ever. It's literally the best place to work. We do a lot of different things in a lot of different areas, but as I tell people, it kind of goes in these 4 buckets. We deal with a lot of product lifecycle management, so CAD tools, PLM tools, PDM tools, and consulting around that, helping people do migrations or upgrades or implementations. We do a lot in the software lifecycle space, so all your DevOps tools, getting software to market more quickly. Basically, those top 2 things are the core of what we do, and our job is to help companies get their products to market more quickly and find out ways to do that. The 2 things on the bottom are really foundational that assist those other 2 things. Cloud for engineering, you could kind of look at this also as infrastructure for your product, which is something that a lot of companies don't take into account. And we help them kind of organize that and rectify that from a both cloud perspective, but also sometimes physical infrastructure perspective. And then the last thing is really where a lot of the AI conversation comes in today, is that data engineering and data analytics. We do a lot of stuff with data migrations and merging systems and business analytics, giving you, dashboards and whatnot, visibility for multiple systems to be able to operate and make good decisions. And that includes kind of the AI component that we talked about today. So I believe that's all I have. I am happy to take questions if you guys have any. And if not, like the slide says, just clap. I don't know if you don't have your mic on, the clapping isn't really going to do anything, but I appreciate it. And I'll leave a slide up that you can just scan and get right to my LinkedIn if you'd like to connect. Otherwise, I'll see if we have.
Looks like you're getting some kudos in the chat as well. Hey, Michael, this is Brian. A question for you. As in the project, and can you hear me okay?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Okay, so in the project manager role, many of the activities as a PM are kind of more administrative. So I think about building a project schedule, creating a project charter. What's your view, advice? What have you seen in using AI to, those more routine tasks?
Yep.
To leverage to, take that out of the equation or simplify it for a PM?
Sure.
Is that even a thing?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I've preached this and this has to do, and Errol will get a kick out of this, me saying this. I was doing automation with Errol and the people at AIT 15 years ago. And that automation, granted, this is that whole goalpost moving when it comes to what is AI. You could argue that we had all this data and the automation around the data was AI. You could absolutely argue that. I didn't think of it was AI at the time. I just thought, I'm trying not to do this all day. I don't want to spend 4 hours of my day doing XYZ. How can we do it in 5 minutes? And that was the view, right? So I would say for like project charters and those type of things, there are a bunch of different systems out there, whether that's like automation and CRM, or not a CRM, a project management tool like a Jira or an Amazon Azure DevOps. Those type of tools have automation built in for creating different things. And when you move it to a certain status, it creates a document that has XYZ based upon certain fields. So I would approach that from an automation around a tool. You could call that AI. I don't know. I mean, depends on what your definition is today. I would say that's maybe not AI. It's maybe just automation, but those type of things for sure to make you more efficient and have you spend less time doing manual things. Those things exist today. I refuse to do manual things without taking the time to figure out how to automate it.
Okay, that's helpful. All right. Any other questions for Michael?
And I'll keep an eye on the chat if there's any other questions you want to put in the chat or in the QA. I'll keep an eye on both. Don't be shy. I know people have questions. Why couldn't you use ChatGPT to create a business case? Cheryl, good question. So I will be quite frank with you. I have used ChatGPT to create business cases. I have used ChatGPT to build a lot of templates for a lot of different things that I needed. And I didn't want to go through the creative process of sitting down and writing it all and then having somebody else edit it. I just started, use ChatGPT as the writer and have it write it. And this is another kind of angle with ChatGPT. People go, I used it and it didn't give me what I wanted. Well, I would probably argue your prompt wasn't very good. I've seen some prompts that are literally like 4 paragraphs, but the output based upon all that input is so much better. So you do have to give ChatGPT a lot of input. And I think that's really where some people's patience is going to be tested. But the more input you give it, the better. I use a couple plugins that actually create some context around the prompt. And so you just select that like side prompt, and then it will it'll include, you know, more information and better output, basically. More information you give it, the better output it will be. What about the legal aspects of companies using ChatGPT, for example? Okay, good question. So that is a brand new wild, wild west area. I would 100% say that if you were going to be using ChatGPT for anything that you are not automatically editing and checking and whatnot, you're putting yourself at risk. So using ChatGPT to automate something probably isn't a good idea. But using ChatGPT to allow you to save time by creating a rough draft of something or being able to utilize it afterwards, I think is very, very smart. But from a legal perspective, and we actually talked about this, we had a company all hands last week, and one of our developers said, we're kind of doing an AI session, and he said, yeah, just know, don't copy everything out of ChatGPT as it comes. You really need to understand what's there. And that creates, you know, not just legal ramifications, but also, you know, security and technical vulnerabilities as well. So yeah, there are a lot of legal things related to ChatGPT and other AI. I would be very careful about that. Would you know if there is a movement in environmental sustainability community to invest in it? Jennifer, good question. I don't know if there's a movement in that ESG community, but I will tell you, almost every industry that I've talked to in the last 6 to 8 months is either trying to figure out what they want to do with it or actually starting to implement things. There's not really many industries that AI doesn't impact at one level or another. Like in the university research. Oh, sorry, same. So from a university research perspective, I will tell you right now, it already I mean, without the changes that have just been announced that I don't know that are actually in production yet, it did say that it does or will have the capability to, if it doesn't already know the answer, to go out to the internet and find information. The problem with that is it may bring you back something that maybe isn't fully accurate, isn't fully vetted. So that's the area I would say from a research perspective that I'd be a little concerned about. But I think at a minimum, one of the things that I've seen a lot of research people do, they have added ChatGPT to their Google search, so that when they search Google, it's searching ChatGPT as well to try to find what information does ChatGPT have that maybe Google doesn't. And that's been helpful from a research perspective. Any other questions? All right. Looks like there's no more questions.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any other questions. So, all right. Oh, here we go. One from Cheryl.
What's the difference between Bard and ChatGPT? I would argue that Bard is ChatGPT version 0.1. That it's not quite where ChatGPT is yet, but with the power of the big companies, you can innovate sometimes much more quickly. Maybe not on other days, but I would say all AI tools with the big guys, Google, Microsoft, they're all going to be really, really powerful in the next year or two. There's going to be major developments. I was actually at a meetup like 2 weeks ago where IBM was talking about some of the stuff that they had done with Watson and Watson X, and like all those companies are investing really heavily into those tools so that they are massively helpful. So give it a couple of years and those big companies will be right where ChatGPT is. All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Have a great rest of your day.
You're welcome. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, all. Thanks, team, for the participation today. Have a good rest of your day.